This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise
Accountability
together.
starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. It's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Listen, we're closing in on 4 years. Like in about 6 weeks, it will be in our 4th year. So I want to thank you all for all of the support, all of the comments, all of the contributions that you guys have made to help make this a robust platform that actually changes lives. You know, we can, you know, we did it once before, right, Diane, where we kind of went through some of the things that it has done. It has been responsible for helping shape policy at the state level in many municipalities, because those folks listen, and then, you know, you'll see a day or two after we talk about something or we nudge hard enough, you'll see something come out in the paper where, you know, one of the mayors or somebody in the governor's office, right, you know, they pick up what we said and they realize it was a good idea and they implement it. So, you know, we've, you know, we continue to
game changers, Eric. We're game changers.
Oh, we game. Hey, listen, I don't see. I'm trying to be.
We're approaching 4 years. We should have a virtual party.
Diane, I am. Oh, you know what? We could do that. We could have a Zoom party. And you know what? If you want to do that, I'm gonna call my friend DJ Tony Motley. And say to DJ Tony Motley, because I don't know if you've seen his cocktails and classics party that he throws. Woof, Diane, I felt like I was in the Zanzibar. That, I'm telling you, he gets down. And anyway, I'm gonna call him and I'm gonna say, listen, I want you to host DJ a party for me, a virtual party, and see where they'll do it for our 4th anniversary. And see if we can hook it up through Zoom and stuff and get people, you know, to come hang out with us, right? But if you want to say we're game changers, I'll take that. You know, I was trying to be a little more modest, but I'll say we are game changers, Diane. To know...
I mean, think about it, Eric. How many other people who are trying to do what you have done have fallen off, do not have the connections, and are able to get to the elected officials to come out and speak and talk about stuff and really listen? Game changers.
Well, you know what's sad, though? But you know what's sad about it? What's sad about it is this. There's not one thing that we say on this show that's not true. And it bears itself out at some point, right? So, you know, you have people who were calling us haters and calling us whatever other names they wanted to call us, simply because we were holding elected officials' feet to the fire. Simply because we were asking what their qualifications were. Simply because we were asking them what plan did they have and by what metrics can we measure success. Right? Because we were asking those questions that they didn't feel comfortable having asked of them. You know, they sent their goons out to attack us and call us haters and do all this kind of crazy nonsense. But we see, in the age of COVID-19, that all the things that we said, that we talked about, they're all being uncovered now. These folks don't have the qualifications. They lack the acumen. They can't do anything right now. They are completely paralyzed. But these are the people who told you, oh, I could get it done. I could do this. I could move the change. I could score touchdowns. Right? We should be asking questions. But here's the shame of it. If they really had the intent to do good, this platform would be a platform for them too. To come on and to share the public service announcements. You know, what a wonderful thing it would have been to be able to partner with these administrations as these towns are going through, still going through, by the way, the water crisis. That's not over. It's not over. Right? But nobody's talking about it now. But it's not over. You're still consuming that water, and because of the current condition we're in now, the bottled water that you used to be able to go out and get it, they're price gouging you in your community now, right? So you're being, subjected to now drinking the water straight out of the tap. Right? So that environmental issue is still impacting you and impacting your children, and will impact their ability to learn and their cognitive skill. All of those things will be impacted. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. But here would be a platform for them to come and say, hey, listen, here's what's going on. Here's what you can do to protect yourself and protect your loved ones. But they choose not to do that. I don't understand. Vincent. Oh, you know what, Vincent? You probably can't see me on Skype, but that's okay, because I think everybody can see you on Facebook, and that's what's really important. That's it.
Hello, world.
That's what's important.
Well, happy 4-year anniversary.
Yeah, man.
And 4 seems to be the number for the day. Today is the 44th day of our lockdown.
The 44th day.
That was supposed to take 2 weeks.
So today's sermon, if you will, and we'll tie everything into it, right? Today's sermon, what did I put up? I said, what's the new normal in the age of COVID-19? Oh, boy. Oh, Vincent had to take a deep breath for that one. What is the new normal? No matter what it is, right? So that's a big umbrella. Now I got a call, and I'm grateful that my younger brother, I would call him my little brother, but he's like 6'6" or something like that, right? And a big, tall guy. So I say my younger brother, not my little brother. Called me today and asked me a question, and I hope he's listening because maybe we can expound on an answer to it. He asked, what about schools and vaccines? Without a vaccine, because they're talking about opening up these schools, right, Diane? Like, some of the governors and some of the administrators have not committed yet to saying school's going to be closed until fall. They haven't committed to that yet.
Well, only New York.
Only
New York says school is closed.
But isn't there debate back and forth between Cuomo and de Blasio as to whether or not that's going to happen? Right. So that's what I'm saying. So nobody's really committed. But what we know is that they're saying that until we get a handle on testing, and then what's the other thing that they call it? Contact tracking or whatever the term is they came up with, right? Contact tracing. Right?
Yes.
So contact tracing, quarantining, and testing. Until we get a handle on that trifecta, we're still at risk of a spread. And so they're saying that a vaccine won't be available for at least 12 months. So how are you going to send hundreds of thousands or millions of kids back to school without a vaccine? So when he asked me today, he said, so what do you think the future, so what's the new normal in the age of COVID-19 as relates to public school? Let's start there. Anybody, any takers?
Well, for one, they don't. It's amazing. They didn't have a plan on how to shut it down. They didn't have a plan on how to get Chromebooks up and how to get internet service to people. And we just talk specifically in New Jersey and Newark. And now they're going to talk about reopening the school. I think one of the biggest concerns that people should have is, so if you reopen schools, so people are going to be interacting with each other, not just students, but teachers and parents dropping off and picking up kids. Everything else is still closed. How does that work in containing the virus or not spreading it on to other people?
Okay, I just saw a report today with a couple of the greatest minds in American scientific history, and here's what's going on. First, to open it up, the school safely, they're talking about a vaccine. Now, as soon as they started talking about a vaccine that has not been developed yet, so that they can inoculate people from the COVID-19 virus, there are already 4,000 conspiracy theories and people now fighting against taking the vaccine.
Of course. Of course.
So, how are they going to open up schools when they're ill-prepared? And right now, they're ill-prepared to open up the country. Right now, in 4 different states, they have been protesting on their state capital about reopening up the economy, spreading the disease and virus amongst all those people who gathered in a close proximity. So, the new norm has to, if we're going to start a new norm, then let's start it right, with a level of education, understanding, information, and trust. We can't trust the information that's coming out from our president because he's inciting riots, because people want to get paid and want some money. We can't trust the information about right now there are close to 9 million unemployed Americans. 1 out of 8 Americans right now are unemployed or file for unemployment. And there would be more. But from what I understand, there are a great deal of Americans who keep getting shut down every time they go online to file for unemployment. We can't trust our government.
Well, let us. Okay, so let us start here about trust. If we want to talk about our new norm, right? We have to begin to identify trustworthy sources. Right? We have to do that because we have to have information. We have to have information with which to act reasonably, right? And responsibly. And I know you said we can't trust Donald Trump, but we can't trust the Democrats either. We can't. So remember months and months ago, year and a half ago, Diane, 2 years ago, we started saying you can't trust your government. You don't have a government. Remember that? And so here we are. You can't trust any of them. That's
right.
The truth. That is the God's honest truth.
How do you build trust with people that you know are untrustworthy?
So let us really, come on. I'm going to try today. Woo-sa. I got to try not to raise my voice today. We can't trust, can we all agree to that? That we can't trust any of them. That they're all scoundrels. They've all lied. They've all lied. And so what we have right now, wait, what was that movie? What we have now is a failure to communicate. That's a quote from, that's a... Yeah,
Jack Nicholson.
I was gonna say, let's see, and I would say, let's see if we had any movie buffs and somebody could put it in. But people go and Google it now, right? Can't even trust that. But put in the movie and the actor who said that. What we have here is a failure to communicate, and the failure to communicate is what is creating the conundrum as we seek to identify the new norm in the age of COVID-19. Right? Uh-oh. Let's take this call. And I want to try to open this up to callers, like a lot of callers. And let's pay, I can't get into the thread, guys. Diane and Vincent. But if you guys can read the thread, and I really want to try to pull the viewer in. Share the show, please, because we're all in this. We're all, whether you like me or not, we're all in this. We're all moving into this new age together, right? We're all linked together. If I walk outside right now without a mask on and I go coughing and sneezing, right, I will likely infect somebody, and somewhere down the line, they may wind up infecting somebody you love. That's the reality. So we're in it together, whether you like me or not. And so we have to communicate. We have to get along on some level now, right? So hit the share button, share the show, engage in this conversation, and let us talk about this new norm. Caller, go.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Diane. I just want to say, Vincent, I think you're wrong there. That is not Jack Nicholson. That is Cool Hand Luke. And Jack Nicholson was not in Cool Hand.
In what movie?
Cool Hand Luke. That's with Paul Newman. He's the prisoner that keeps running away. That's the sheriff.
Ah, you know what?
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
That's absolutely right.
Now, wait a minute. Jack Nicholson, and it was also in a Spike Lee movie.
No, we want to go to the original, and I think that Farrakhan is correct. Hey, Farrakhan, I got to design. I want to do that. I want to have like what do you call it? Like little pop quizzes or little fun factoid things. And I want to design trivia. Thank you, Diane.
Okay.
And then I want to design Eric Dawson Radio Show shirts, right? And we give a shirt out if you if you get it right, if you call in and get it right. Do something like little mugs or something like that. We'll figure that out. But you're correct, Farrakhan. Farrakhan, hold on 1 second. We got another caller. Caller, go.
Good morning, Democracy.
Good morning.
Good morning, Democracy. Can you hear me?
Is this Shay Coulter?
Yes.
Is this Shay Coulter?
I have a few short moments just to thank you, Eric. Good to see you and Vincent and here Diane and Farrakhan. I just was sharing that the day, 24 hours before the school system went on break in Newark, a state trooper who I used to work out with at Weekway Park, I won't say the person's name, they called me and they said, Shay, there's a safety issue with all of the mass transit hubs in New Jersey. It was like, if you can prevent having your son downtown tomorrow or traveling in and around downtown, they got to shut the whole school system down. I'm only illuminating that or bringing that up, Eric, because as you and Vincent were articulating, new safety standards are going to have to take place in terms of the processes of effective schooling, safe schooling. Children are, our sons and daughters are our most prized possession. And parents have the constitutional right to make sure that transition is a safe one. And my question to Vincent is, our schools nationally across the country, but particularly New Jersey, are they ready to make that industry adjustment where they might have to do instruction with like increased levels of protective equipment and, the way that safety has changed every 15 years? Will we see new safety standards in the schools unless, the government is going to subsidize parents and in fact pay us to home instruct? But that was just a theory, and by the grace of God, I got that call 24 hours before they closed it, because North parents want the best for their kids. Northeast Orange and Irvington, they don't want their child getting sick, their son or daughter getting sick in the schoolhouse. And germs travel very fast in schools, as you all know that are on the panel. Mm-hmm. That's something that's an ongoing responsibility for parents. But Vincent, if you could just weigh in a little bit on that, and Diane, I know you both have
well, you know what? You're absolutely right. What I've read in some other articles in other schools, and I'm going to go back to the article to pull up the exact school system, that they talked about the new normal.
And have a blessed day. I got to roll out.
Thank you for the call. Thanks for your question.
The new normal that they're looking at, for one, is cutting the sizes of classrooms in half to eliminate overcrowding in classes. So if you have 30 kids in a class, they're looking to literally downsize to 15. But Eric, you and I talked about this before, about some of the things that are going to progress moving forward are going to be positive things that should have been put in place anyway, but didn't happen because they didn't want to do it because of funding and all of those things. But now they're going to be forced to do these things. And some colleges and universities are talking about their fall semester is going to be completely online. They're not going to do in-class, in-session classes anymore, that they want to do everything virtual until they get out of the next, into the next year.
Yeah. So here's one of the
historically, well, if I could address this question, health and safety of schools has always been a priority. Since the 1960s, the public school systems have implemented health practices, which means that before your child can enter in the public school, they have to be inoculated with all the shots. In fact, it even extended down to the daycare level as well. The only issue is that defining health and safety. In the 90s and the early 2000s, they went from a health-motivated system to a safety-motivated with all the school shootings. And in fact, most of the schools really haven't implemented some safety practices with shootings in terms of security, but what the police around have done with active shooting drills. Once again, not being proactive, but reactive. Now, it's no doubt in my mind with the change in history. But, and in terms of what Diane said, she's absolutely right. What we found is that school systems in high tax areas or influence upper middle class to middle class area school systems, public school systems, they've already had computers. It was part of their actual equipment, like books. It's the lower income and the urban schools who had trouble with getting books. And now, in fact, tomorrow we're going to launch our GoFundMe to get roughly 2,000 computers to some of these students in Camden County. But they are once again behind the curve. They were behind the curve and ill prepared for this virus. They were behind the curve in terms of the old normal. So the new norm should be more of bringing our schools to a level of technology. There's no way in the world, in the most richest country in the world, that we should have students now scrambling, and we have to do GoFundMe and everybody beg when the average school budget is over $100 million.
Right.
And we're talking about the poor cities in New Jersey. There's no way in the world that should happen. The new norm should.
Go ahead. When we say so the fight for proper funding, the fight to create equitability and equality within our schools was for preparedness. Now we talked, because my brother asked me also, he said, Eric, he said if an asteroid comes and hits Earth, nobody's prepared for that. And I said, well, you prepare as best you can for worst case scenarios. So I guarantee you there's some scientists already who think about what if an asteroid hits, what damage would it cause, how long would it take for the water from the Jersey Shore to make it to the highest point in North Jersey, right? I bet you somebody's got models out there, right? And there are things in place somewhere.
There were.
Right?
There were. 1982.
So the point that I'm making is this, that, and I said to him, look, we were talking about preparedness. And now on this show, we were talking about preparing our children for emerging job markets, right? To be competitive for 21st century jobs and things like that. But beyond that, the folks who are in charge, because all we do is a show from Monday through Friday. But you have folks who are running for election who have way more information, inside information than we have. And so when you have folks who are sitting on a board of education, and now, pardon me, but I'm going to go back to a guy, I'm going to go back to Marquise Lewis, who used to fall asleep at state board meetings, right? And so here's a guy who's the president of the Board of Education in the city of Newark who was falling asleep, and folks who were on the Newark board with him, who I'm friends with, told me, or I'm associates with, told me how he would come ill-prepared, that he wouldn't read the packet. Please mute your phone, whatever that is. And so now, as these conversations are going on, right? Like whether we talk about influenza, we talk about Ebola, the conversations about the fact that there's a likelihood of another pandemic or pandemic. Please mute your phone. I don't know who that is. Thank you. You would imagine that the board members, right, or anybody who's in an elected position, correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, that should be something on their docket somewhere where they're looking, going, okay, there's this conversation going on here about this. Are we prepared for that? How would we do it if it happened? What kinds of things do we have in place? And so for them not to have had any preparedness at all, none, zero. How do you have people who are pushing, let's take Newark example, and Jersey City, and Patterson, who were fighting to get back, and not that the state was any more prepared, but when these school systems were under the purview of the state before they got their local control back, the state wasn't prepared. But as these folks were seeking through political means to take back the Board of Education, were they looking at all of these different things? Do you understand what I'm saying, Vincent?
No, they weren't. They
were looking at contracts. They were looking at getting friends and family members jobs.
Exactly.
They were looking at those things. See, that's what I'm saying. Let's not have any more failures to communicate.
The fracking situation, you might not recall, there was the fracking issue, and they was talking about expanding fracking up the New Jersey line through Pennsylvania through New Jersey, and how that pipeline would cut through, specifically through Linden and some other towns. When I was on council, and I brought it up to them that we need to put in place, because other towns were putting in place, and I had been reading about fracking for a long time anyway, since Michael Moore had did a special in Pennsylvania. I discussed with the council that we need to put in place an ordinance to make sure that there is no fracking through the town, because if they decide, Linden or Roselle, say no, but they can bypass and come through Cranford and come around to another town through Union, we need to be prepared that if we're bordering a town that says yes or doesn't address it, that it does not affect us. So you're dealing with people on the council, and they didn't want to do it. They didn't even want to address it. Right. But you're dealing with people on the council who don't read. They don't watch the news. Right. They don't read the newspapers. They don't read books. All they know is what's in their head. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. These are the people that you're dealing with. And this is why government is always behind, because we have people that get elected that are stupid. And we have to say it. They are stupid. They can barely run their own household, let alone make decisions for the entire town.
Right. But Diane, but I want to say this.
Diane, let me say this. But I want to. Amen, sister. Amen.
But Diane, understand this: that there are some towns where the elected officials are not stupid. The elected officials do read.
And those are the towns that you see are always moving forward.
That's absolutely correct.
Short Hills, when you look at Milburn, their kids had Chromebooks and laptops.
That's right.
6 years ago.
That's right.
6 years ago. They have, and you can compare it, not even looking at the laptops. They have students that are taking college prep classes or college classes while they're in high school so that they can save money. They have always been forward thinking. Mm-hmm. The people we deal with are stupid. They are stuck on stupid.
But they don't want to listen. These are the people that we elect. And so, I suggest that one of the new norms in the age of COVID-19 is that we do an assessment, an honest assessment of where we are, right? And then be honest about why we're where we are, why we're here. See, the energy is being pushed to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But that's not why your kid doesn't have a Chromebook, right? That's why that's not why your kid, if you're in one of these urban centers, primarily why they're not going to be on par. They're going to be. Do you know how far they're going to be behind when this is all over? Do you know how far? Like, think about it. These kids are home and they don't have 1/8 of what their counterpart has in terms of being able to study and access to internet and technology and information to be able to get. If they don't go back to school, I mean, until the fall, I don't think that they'll ever catch up. I think that they will forever be behind. I think that you will need, in the urban schools, you'll need an additional school year just to try to catch up on the lag time. Call or go.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good morning to everybody.
What's going on, man? Are you on the road, Mike?
Yeah, man, I had to pull over. I said I will wait till I get where I go and then I call, but I forgot what the topic was. But no, everybody had great input. You're right on point. We're already behind, so the kids are already behind, most of them. And right now, you can springboard them forward from this point on if we concentrate on their level to critically think. But I just wanted to add to the conversation about the school. Last month, March, was the first month since they started recording school shootings that we didn't have a school shooting. So that's kind of ironic. We did put a stop to one thing, the COVID-19 era. But in my experience dealing with environmental issues and what I was doing was I was going door to door and talking to people and getting petitions signed. But then I started listening to General Honore. He was the general that was put in charge of New Orleans after the disaster, the hurricane disaster. And he deals with disasters and things of that nature. But after he retired, he got heavily into the environmental community. And a lot of the topics that he talked about, not talking about this virus, but it's in the nature of disasters and how we deal with it. But what he was talking about one time is that we all need to do tribal studies where we live. And I had already been doing that, but I didn't know I was doing it, just talking to people if somebody's sick or who has asthma, did anybody die recently, and I would jot it down. But inside, I was doing the tribal study, but when I heard him talk about it, I said, wow, that's what, we all need to be doing. We need to be in close, we can't do it now, but in order for us to come out of this thing, we're going to have to reimagine the way business and schooling and everything is done. We got this. Because a lot of people. I have to stop saying nobody, but a lot of people, their imagination is cut off because their only object is to capitalize on you. Not to say that capitalism is bad, but that's their main purpose. So they don't. They could never imagine themselves in a situation like this to even have to think about coming out of a situation like this.
Right.
So, but that's all I wanted to add to the conversation.
And if I could add to what he's saying, first, Eric, to your point, everybody blaming it on 1600.
Your phone, Vincent.
Yeah, it's breaking up.
You're breaking up. You got it. Yeah, your earpiece.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Got you.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Now, to answer 2 points. First, Eric, you're right. 1600 didn't cause the underlying conditions. 1600 exploited the underlying conditions that we're going through. We're already been behind the curve. And to answer his point, no. And Diane's point, no. People do not have the imagination. What they do is either accept the information from their leader or reject it. Case in point, we spent close to $14 billion during the 80s building up our nuclear weapons arsenal. And nobody questioned Ronald Reagan because he was doing the right thing and preparing us for an attack against the Russians. That never happened. President Obama in 2000, I believe it was 2009, 2010, he started the updating. He added $14 billion to the CDC because he said that 100-year attack on a virus that is not known, we are due for it. And they totally destroyed him. The Republican Party totally destroyed it and called it a waste of spending. Now, what we do is we base that information on our future plannings on our leaders. And then those leaders are either accepted for what they're doing, depending on the person, or they're rejected. That's one of the reasons why we weren't prepared for this. Trump didn't believe that it would happen. And people believe Trump. We didn't. People didn't. We said in Pennsauken, our superintendent had everybody post a bond for $150 million for an artificial turf football field for a team that's usually winning 4 games a year. And we were saying that instead of spending all that money on a football field, which is only seasonal, why don't we spend that money on computers, increasing the school and the curriculum? Now that we're in this situation, we still have a great football field that nobody can use. But there are not a lot of children in Pennsauken have computers to do their work distantly. The problem that we have is that we listen to these leaders who are so charismatic and everybody likes them, and they lead them down a path of destruction.
Right.
Now, how did I do, Diane? Because I didn't raise my voice this time.
That was good.
Well, I mean, we also have to deal with people's selfishness. And the first thing people start doing, and I'm guilty of it myself, is how's this decision ain't going to make it? How's it going to affect me? Or how much money I'm going to lose? Or I can't see that person over there getting a few dollars because I'm not getting a few dollars. Right. And we live in the age that people are so selfish that they're totally dependent on what the majority is doing. They can't even see themselves falling under. So going back to what Vincent is saying, that that football field looks good because we could all go on the football field and see a game. But
right.
Damn it, everybody can't even get to the school now. So we gotta reimagine this thing.
So I think Farrakhan wanted to say something, and I'm gonna respond to that. Go ahead, Farrakhan.
Just 2 things. One, not in an argumentative way, because I don't really mean it this way, but it was a waste. Right? Giving the CDC that money, it was a waste. Not in the sense of the concept, because we needed it, but the CDC wasn't doing anything with it. See, if the CDC was doing anything with it, they could produce right now the solution that they created when they had the $14 billion or $1 billion, whatever it may have been. But they didn't. They can't do that because when they were getting that money, they probably were just patting themselves and doing what the hell they were doing. It cannot.
I disagree with that.
Let him finish. Please let him finish.
Let me finish. If I'm wrong, then I challenge you to challenge the CDC to show me what they had in 2008 that would show us how to go about it now.
Okay, I can answer that for you because what they did with that money was 2 things. One, they reduced the pandemic of the SARS virus that came close to actually hitting America. And 2, they took care and neutralized the Ebola virus with that money. Now, why did they not do it now? Because Donald Trump defunded the project so that he can build a wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for.
Now,
and to Farrakhan's point, bureaucracy, you will never see what somebody is doing with the money, or just because somebody gives them billions of dollars, the bureaucracy comes in and says, no, you can't use it here, you can't do that, you can't do this. So, so it causes confusion. And go to back to Vincent's point is, you seeing the information coming out of the CDC. You need to put the app on your phone and all of that stuff. Just action is right there. It's not, the leadership has everything to do with what we're going through right now, because instead of the 45th president saying, I need my military to mobilize and go over there and fight that instead of it getting over here, he waited until it got here, and then he still ain't mobilized it effectively the way it needs to be mobilized to put a stop to it.
Here's what I'm going to say.
If I can add to what you're saying, he didn't mobilize anything. The governors of every state mobilized.
Vincent, so
they waited till it got here.
So
exactly.
It was a hoax. Remember that. It was a hoax.
It was a Democratic hoax. They were trying to take him down.
Vincent?
Remember?
Okay. So here's what I believe happened. I believe.
I'm gonna hang up and get back on.
Hey, drive safely, Mike.
Drive safe. Thanks for calling, Mike.
My grandmother always said there are two sides of a story, and somewhere in the middle there's the truth. So, articles that I've read, things that I've seen, indicate that there was some defunding, but then there was some moving around of some people too. Now, whether Donald Trump did the right thing or not with regard to how he handled funding or defunding that, right? We'll continue to debate it. What I think is not up for debate is the fact that he had information, right, about this virus, and he withheld the information, right? And he downplayed the information. He downplayed it, even though he had the information, right? So that has nothing to do with the CDC. That has to do with what Donald Trump was getting in his briefings and decided not to share with the American people. And I conclude that the reason he didn't do it was all political, right? He was running on the best economy in the world, right? That was what he was saying. And I think that his advisors who are looking at the economy, not looking at the welfare of the people, the health of the people, they were looking at the economy, and they were saying, if you say this, do you understand that the cornerstone of your campaign is going to go straight down the toilet? You can't say this. So he waited until he had no other choice, until it was out here, right? He was holding on to the lie.
Let me ask you a question, Eric.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question? Because I sort of agree with you, but here's my question to that. If he did it, how did those senators that knew to go and start selling off some stock? He told the people that should have told us.
No, I agree. But let's get back to where I started, Farrakhan.
Farrakhan, you're absolutely right. The senators knew.
No,
they knew it was coming, and what they did was took their money out of the stock market.
Let's get back to where I started.
And that's what I'm saying. So when I hear the narrative coming on TV, CNN, and they're saying what he didn't do, I'm like, wait a minute. There were apparently he didn't get on the news and address it to the individual American, like the constituent. He left that up to the Senate, like to the congressmen and the senators. And then the senators, who were supposed to go back to their governors.
No, Farrakhan, you're going down the road that we already addressed. You're right.
Right, no. But what I'm saying, so can we say that it was Donald Trump?
No, but
we say it was our state?
No, Farrakhan. Farrakhan, but what I'm saying, we covered that in the first 10 minutes where we talked about the fact that we can't trust them, right? That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, can we all agree to that, and then operate from that, right? So when I hear people simply talk about Donald Trump without talking about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, then I say that those people are disingenuous and they have an ulterior motive. See, everybody knew. They were all in on it. All of them. And I'll tell you why they were all in on it. Because they're still in on it. You know why? Because nobody is calling out anybody but Donald Trump.
That's right.
Hear what I'm saying to you. They're all in on it.
Hey, Farrakhan, they were all in on it, and you knew that when they took all their money out of the stock market.
So indeed, and that's what I'm saying. And before I hang up, I just want to say this one thing. Going back to the movie analogies and all that, to what you just said about the football field, as opposed to phone books and laptops and so forth, going back to the movies, are we entertained? Right? Because that's what it is. Americans love to be entertained. And as long as we're entertained, we don't care what this government is doing, ineffective or effective. All we want to do is be entertained. Just like in the movie. What did they call that movie? That was Gladiator, right? The guys yelling, "Are we entertained?"
Yes, it was Gladiator. Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Right. So that's it.
Yes.
As long as we're entertained, we don't care. We'd rather watch a football game and educate our.
Correct. How about that?
So we have to question ourselves, right? As individuals. I'm not knocking no politician for the ineffectiveness of them and what they do on their job. When I look at the people and how they did them.
Yeah. So
if we're going with movie analysis, Donald Trump would be like the captain on the Titanic who had the information about the iceberg. Yeah.
So with the new norm, with what you guys were saying and what Mike Spruce said when he called in about the fact that, we operate in a very selfish way, what works and what's good for me. Well, what I said now is we realize that what I do directly affects you. Directly affects you. And so are we now prepared in the age of COVID-19 as a new norm to truly operate as our brother's keeper? Because that's what's required. Because without it, it all crumbles. It's crumbling now. And what we need to keep from falling through the black hole is we need to have other people helping us out, right? But there was this whole conversation that was happening before around the fact that there were some people who weren't doing well, or we were prepared to walk past homeless people, or, folks of less fortune than ours. And just call them lazy and call them trifling and say that they need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, right? We weren't ready to hear the fact that, maybe it was through policy or some event that was outside of their control that led them to their circumstance and that they needed some help, right? We weren't listening to what Martin Luther King Jr. said when he said it's a cruel thing to ask a bootless man to pick himself up by his bootstraps, because right now we have a whole lot of bootless people, don't we? Millions. And to ask them all right now to pick themselves up by their bootstraps would be a cruel thing. And so the government and everybody is working hand in hand to put some semblance of boots on them so that they could survive. In this new age, right, are we ready to carry this beyond when the checks end? I don't know when that's going to be, right? The $1,200 is coming, but now the Dems are talking about $2,000 an American per, and I want to ask that question. I want to get to that too. But they're saying $2,000 a month per American, right? Until this thing is over. When is it really going to be over? And then Vincent, yesterday when I was talking to you, I said, well, how does that count for the homeless people? They're Americans, right? Or are they? Do they get $2,000 a month too?
No, they don't.
Eric, it sounds like reparations to me.
Wait a minute, Diane. I got my ADOS.
They didn't want to talk about the elephant in the room.
See,
we got to create a study committee so we can study that. Why do we need that? Who's going to pay for that? Where the money come from? But poof, here it is, $1,200.
Diane, you know what? I put a post up. I don't even know where it is now, where I said, you know, do you guys I put it up a couple of weeks ago. I said, do you all realize? Well, whenever they Donald Trump signed the $6.2 trillion. I said, do you realize that the government just pulled that out of their ass and they did whatever without a meeting, without anything? Do you know that thing has it's got like 4,000 shares or some craziness, right? And people in there commenting and responding to it. And I'm saying to them in that thing exactly what you're saying, like, yo, do you understand that when they want to repair something, they repair it? See, that's all. Like, let's take the mystique out of reparations. It's just repair. It is identifying that something is broken, that you broke it, and that you need to repair it, right? And so they're repairing right now all of what, to some extent. You know what? I'm not even going to, no. They're not repairing
everything.
Let me take it back. They're not repairing.
Of course. That's why I was saying what they're trying to do is get us back to the old norm.
They're not repairing.
We need a new norm.
Listen.
If we're going to repair it, then repair it right. I'm not talking about putting a Band-Aid on a laceration. I'm talking about doing a serious operation.
They're not repairing it. It's kind of like it's kind of like you taking some duct tape
and putting it on your tire and riding from here to
exactly, Diane. You know what I mean? Or like the people, person who has the like that little donut tire, right? So they get a flat, right, and they put the donut on, they roll around with it.
Right. You know, and they gotta wait for the next paycheck to buy a new tire.
You know that something is about to happen bad if they keep that tire on, right? It's just a matter of time. Because that tire, if you read it, is not to be a permanent tire.
It's only to give you 3,000 miles.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And so what they're putting on right now is that donut. But that donut isn't even ready to take you 3,000 miles. It's not even ready to take you 30 days. And so what's next? So I agree that they need to do more. I understand your point about reparations, Diane. They didn't have to determine any studies or, well, you know what? That's not true. They did do a study. They said, look, we built this thing.
Officials here in New Jersey talking about we had to do a reparation study. You ain't never going to hear about that again.
They said, we built this country with the premise that all of those folks are the commodity to our wealth and power. And if they don't have any money, right, not enough to be free, to be independent, but just enough to continue to feed the system, then what's going to happen to us? And so what they did is, it to some extent, it's kind of what Andrew Yang talked about, right? Universal basic income. He said you gotta keep them alive. You gotta. So they're intubating the entire populace of America.
Because Eric,
they put us all on respirators.
Yeah. So what they see is if they don't get people back to work, they're going to start coming for them and coming up in their houses.
Oh, what happened in Michigan?
Their stuff.
Diane, you see what happened in Michigan? So the governor of Michigan said, hey, we need to shut this all down. There was a revolt. You had sheriffs say, we're not going to enforce it. You had thousands of people march on the Capitol in Michigan saying in defiance, saying that we're not going to do this. We want to go back to work.
Right. And that was all fueled, a lot of that was fueled by Donald Trump saying that, we need to open up our economy. And people were saying, yeah, we're hurting. We need to go back to work. So they're putting their wealth ahead of their health.
Well, but so the question becomes again, but the question...
look at the trickle, look at what they did by doing that. Thousands of people out in the open, close proximity, spreading the virus, and now taking it back to their families.
Right, but I want to ask you this question, right? So here's the deal. you have your I don't know if you ever read the story of, probably more than one person has done this, but I remember reading the first time somebody did it. They got their foot caught in a bear trap, right? And they were out in the, in the wilderness, right? And what they did to survive, because they realized that if they stayed in that bear trap, they couldn't open it, that they were going to die. So they sawed their foot off, right? They sawed their foot off because they were looking long term. So the question that I'm asking is this: is the cure? Because look, unless you're going to give people money, unless you're going to completely suspend every payment that they have to make, right? People have to live. You got money fuels everything. It fuels you buying food. It fuels where you live. It fuels everything. And businesses are closing. I had 3 of my clients tell me they're never opening up again. So this is happening in real time. These are real people. They're not just statistics, Vincent. And so the question, and I'm just trying to figure it out myself. And I'm curious to know what people are saying in the thread. But while these people are hurting, if they can't foresee that there is going to be repair for them, then they've got to fend for self. Right? And say, okay, so what is the possibility in terms of the number of deaths with me going and try to fend for myself? But if we don't, and we stay in, and we're operating with this incompetent government that doesn't know what to do, then how many deaths are going to occur over the next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, right? Because of this. Food insecurities, people starving to death. People freezing out in the cold because they're homeless. People suffering other kinds of issues because of environmental racism, right? All of these things that may occur that I'm sure somebody's doing models on that too. Are those numbers going to exceed the number of deaths? So the calculus that somebody's making when they say, I got to go to work, I'm going to put, I got to go, is that nobody else is going to take care of them. The government has proven that they can't. So what do? You shelter in place and do what? You wait, because now for people who don't have direct deposit, how long did they say, Diane, the checks are going to take to get to some of those people?
To the end of May.
Right? So now what do they do in the meantime? Millions of people. What do they do? So you have a government, and I'm not saying that they're wrong for saying shelter in place. Let's stop the spread. But that person says, hey, listen, I could wait to the end of May, and that's what you're telling me now. You may roll out another headline next week that says it's not going to come until middle of June. But you know what? I could go out right now and get a job, and I can pay, and I can bring some milk and some veggies and some bread home. What do they do? If we're going to go and say that we have a government that we can't trust, that's where we started. Right? That's where we started. That we have a government, both sides, that we can't trust. That have proven through the fact that what's laying bare in the open right now is that everything that they sold us about our economy, about the strength of our country, was a lie. So why should people believe now? Vincent, I don't know what's going on with your headset. Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can. You may have to turn that thing off and go straight through your phone.
When I go through my phone, it echoes in the feed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The confusion that we have right now is a government that we can't trust. But what we can trust are the reliable experts. One thing that seems to resound a lot in talking and listening to all of these people is that all the experts tend to say pretty much the same thing. And so you know that they're not telling you a lie over and over again. What they are doing is telling you the truth. Dr. Fauci, Sanjay Gupta, the guy from Facebook, him and his wife, they also have a foundation. And all the experts are saying the exact same thing. In fact, right now, they're saying that they're talking about to eliminate this virus right now. We're going into early 2021.
Well, listen, So let's separate the people for a second.
Okay.
Let's take the crazy conspiracy theorists and let's put them in a bucket. They're over there. I'm talking about the people who are listening to what Dr. Fauci is saying. Listen to what Dr. Burke is saying. Listen to what the other experts are saying. Right? And they're saying, yep, I understand I'm rolling the dice. I get it. I get that me going out there has the potential of doing this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the best I can by putting my mask on and putting my gloves on. But damn it, I got to go to work. Because I can't trust the government. I trust what they're saying in terms of, the medical experts. But I can't trust the government that they're going to do something that they have never done, which is care about the people. Right? And so now, I mean, we're having, right? I mean, but this is where we are. This is the age of COVID-19. Reality check. We have a government that has never cared about the people. And we know that based on where we are right now. And so for the people who look at it and go, you know what, I'm in the condition I'm in because of those mofos. So now you want me to trust them that they're gonna provide for me now? No, I'm going to provide for myself. So I'm going to hear the information. I'm going to make the best choices that I can make based on the information I got. Now, I understand that we can talk about the recklessness of it and all that, but can you blame them? I'm not talking about conspiracy theorists. They're different.
Yes. I can blame them because, one, when people aren't listening to the experts, I mean, right now we're at a point where there is not a 6th degree of separation from knowing or having someone that has experienced this virus. We're talking about now a 3 degree of separation, knowing someone who has died from it or has it. That right there, when you decide that, you know what, even though you know that there is a known risk out there that will kill you, and you decide that, you know what, I need to get my wage paycheck more than I need to be safe, then you're in denial.
I don't know that they're in denial. I'm telling you. I don't know that they are. I think, and Diane, is anybody responding? I don't think that they're in denial. I think that they are calculating the risks. I think they're calculating the risks. Right?
No, they're minimizing the risk.
Well, I mean, we can debate that, right? But if you've got a person who's in a home right now, they can't pay their rent. They don't know when their check is going to come. The landlord is breathing down their throats. I was told that New Community Corporation, I don't know the truthfulness of it because I asked somebody to call in and they didn't. But they were saying that they were getting phone calls, that the residents there on Orange Street in Newark were getting phone calls that their rent was due, right? So that stress, that anxiety is real. If you've got children in the house and they're crying because they're food deprived, that's real. And so that is what's going on in real time with some people. And then they're being told, you may not get any money for 6 weeks.
Yes, but Eric, there's a support group for that. It's called All of Us. We're all in this dealing with that stress.
No, that's my point to you. But that's my point. And so,
but we don't all just say, you know what, open up the economy because I need to pay my rent. No, we say, look, brother, I'm in this just like you. When it opens up, I will get you your money. We come to the realization and not the denial that they can't evict you anyway because the government is shut down. You have to now stop letting fear motivate your actions and start using some decent decisions. We can't sit up here and say that, you know what, oh, my child doesn't eat every day, when we know that right now the schools and the cafeterias are now sending out meals. We can't sit up here and listen to the situation where they're saying, well, there are miles of lines of people waiting to get food when we got food in our refrigerator.
I got it. I tell you because, I'm fortunate. I'm blessed, and so are you. You talked about your business. You talked about your employees. You talked about, your money and your assets and all those things when we had Andre on the show. So where you sit is different from where the majority of Americans are. From where the majority of Americans are. And I'm saying that the majority of Americans don't have the comfort. Their issues are this close to them. If you guys can't see me and you're listening, I got my hand almost at my nose. I'm not touching it, but I got my hand at my nose. Caller, go.
No, I just want to say, Vincent, come on, man. There are people need, people don't live in fisticuffs, right? They live in hand and mouth. People can't see the down the road. We're all in this together. Listen, right now, you're not all in this together when, like Eric said, you got landlords calling, when you got, kids looking at you like, yo, dad, mom, that refrigerator look a little empty there. Ain't no milk. Ain't no bread. Listen, people have to make choices. I'm not saying that it's a good choice to go out and work. Listen, I ain't opened up my store, which is collecting rent and all other things, right, for 4 weeks. Right, but that's just I'm fortunate enough to not have to. But most people can't say that. Most people cannot say they can go 3 days without earning $1. Better yet, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5, 6. So you people have to do something. Our government, right, is not moving fast enough, right, to guide us through this, and they're not giving any guidance. That's where the real problem is. The problem is the people are supposed to want to get up and go to work, right, and pay their bills, right? You're a landlord, right? Have you told all your tenants don't worry about it for the next 3 months? Yeah. Kudos to you. I give you proof. No. That's what you do. Yeah.
No, I have not said that. No.
Okay. And here's the thing, right? Even if you told them, don't worry about it for the next few months, are you giving them these 3 months free? Are you telling them they got to come up with, let's just say, $1,000 every month? So that's $3,000. In four months, they're going to need to come up with $3,000 plus the next month. So $4,000 in one rock.
Well, here is what we're looking at, Farrakhan, and this is how I judge and engage it. We're looking at a situation where we don't know when this thing will truly end. So, and since we don't know that, then I'm in between, like a lot of other landlords and business owners, I'm in between my creditors and the people that you pay. Mm-hmm. So, in this situation, you have to come to some realistic thoughts and plan of action instead of going off of fear. Yes, I do have options. And let's not get this twisted. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Everything that I've gotten, I've worked for.
But we're not talking about that. Wait.
Let me finish. Please, let me finish.
But you got it. Okay. I don't want to go
Let me finish.
Let me finish. But that's insulting what you just said. And that's why I'm interrupting you. Because that is not the issue. That's not the issue. Because you sound out of touch. Let me finish my thought now. Because you sound out. See, when we talk, we're talking urgency, right? So I'm looking and saying to myself, if you're a guy who has the luxury financially to tell all of your tenants that you're going to forego rent for 3 months, that puts you in a different stratosphere than the people that you're telling need to think rationally. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is this. And I said I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I understand the struggle is real.
But you may have one now.
Wait, let me finish, Eric. Please, let me finish. And I'm not saying to people, no, I'm going to forego. What I'm saying is that, you know what, when this is over, we can work it out. The same thing I say with the people that I owe money to. Mortgages, people who I employ, who need their money.
It has to come out.
If you think that I'm not feeling you think that we're small businesses aren't still in the struggle. You just talked about one of your clients who has to shut down.
Right, but
yes.
but that's my whole point. But Vincent, the point that I'm trying to make to you, and I think what caused Farrakhan to call in is this. See, you have the room you have to breathe in making the choices that you're making is that you can sit here and say that I'm going to tell all my tenants they don't have to pay rent for 3 months. Do you know how much room that is? Now, you can, wait a minute, let me finish now. You can't compare your circumstance and whatever anxiety you may have while you're making the decision about your creditors who are calling you to the person who for the last 7 years have been trying to figure out, because they work 2.5 jobs, how to put a little bit on their cell phone bill. As they're driving down the street, they're looking to see if their living room light is on, because if it's not, that means their electricity got turned off. See, those are not realities of yours, because you just said to me that you can tell all of your tenants that they can go 3 months without paying rent. So I'm not talking.
Wait a minute. In saying that, let me answer that, Eric. In saying that, keep in mind that, you know what, we do have a need for money.
No, I'm not
wait, no, let me finish, please. Not only do I have a family to support, but also because I employ them, I support other families, and they have to breathe. They have to have a level of eating. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying to you that no, I'm not calling everybody and sweating them and saying, you know, you get my money and all that other stuff, okay? Because I understand what everybody's going through, just like what I'm going through and experiencing.
But as a mortgage holder, right, you have options on how you can readjust your mortgage, right? So you'll still get your money. But the thing is, these people that aren't working, you don't get money for work you didn't do. So they're not going, by missing a check, they're never going to get that to catch up. That's just gone. That time and that money is gone. So, you understand? So in 3 months, they won't have 3,000. They're still going to have what they always have. Right? But you, as a mortgage holder, could have either gotten a forbearance or you could have readjusted your mortgage so that whatever payments you didn't do for the previous 3 months get pushed to the back end.
Yes, and you know what? Even in doing that, my credit rating has dropped 40 points.
Right,
so it's going, so that's even difficult for me.
Vincent, but you're missing the point, and I want to move on.
Okay.
The point that I'm saying is this: that the floor you're on and the window you're looking out of, and the comments that you're making, right, don't relate to the majority of people because they're on a different floor. So thank God. So when you're talking about even the decisions that you're saying you're making and the understanding that you've got employees and they have families to feed and things like that, right? So maybe part of your urgency is in doing this is maybe if you weren't doing whatever you have the luxury of doing to ensure some level of security for your employees might be some of the people out there in the street trying to figure out how they're going to get their bills paid. So because you have the luxury to keep them secure in employment, thank God they're not out there risking their lives and somebody else's life. But
I don't consider it a luxury, Eric. I consider it a decency.
Well, no, it's a luxury.
It's not a luxury to me. It's not a luxury that I take money out of my family's mouth to feed someone else.
But the fact that you're missing the point again. The fact that you have the money. See, I consider it to be a luxury that I can do the things that I do. When I say that, I'm privileged. It's a privilege to be able to do.
It is.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's a luxury and a privilege.
Okay,
I'm not disparaging you. Let's be clear. It's not a disparaging term when I say that. It is so that folks understand that I understand, the blessings that I have, right? And the status that I have in my life is far different from the majority of folks.
Correct.
Right. And so I'm not speaking about it from my perspective. When I say, people have to go risk their lives because they don't have, they got to go to work because they can't, put milk in the refrigerator. That thank God that's not me. But it could be. But it's not me. Right?
But only by the grace of God is it not me.
Right, but that's a whole other. But my point to you is this: if we are in this age, of COVID-19 going to be our brother's keeper, it is required, I believe, for us to have that deep level of empathy and understanding that my circumstances are not somebody else's. We got to call a go.
Of course, and before the caller goes, and that's what I was saying, it's that level of understanding that has me, and that level of understanding that how blessed and fortunate that I am, that I'm not going out there and like, the guy said, the landlord calling up, or I'm making sure that my employees are getting their checks, even though there's no money coming in, or multiple things. With great power comes great responsibilities, and I'm responsible, and it's an honor that God has blessed me with being responsible to take care of and make sure that people are getting fed under my employment. And if I can do it at personal risk, then why can't these corporations that are making billions and hundreds of billions of dollars do it?
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But let's take the call. Go.
Well, it's similar to what I wanted to chime in. What we're talking about now is has everything to do with privatization of our government, and we've reduced this environmental global disaster down to whether somebody can pay rent or not. All right, this is supposed to be the wealthiest nation on the planet. Now, if we let them deflect what is really happening, this global environmental disaster, when they designate something as a disaster, everything goes out the damn window with the birds, because now we are not under the same conditions that was previous. So this thing is going to get even more complicated, because we ain't even got into different seasons yet with the mosquitoes and the hurricanes and the this and the that. This thing is going to get so complicated, and we have all the wrong people in all the wrong place. It's like Eric talk about chess all the time. Our stuff is all over the damn board. They're whacking us off left and right because we reduced it down to ourselves. Now, we in the building together. Damn it. Did you get the call that I got? Did the landlord call you? Like, we want our money in this national disaster? We need to call him back together. And then we need to ring his phone and tell us to stop ringing his phone. Because we ain't talking no money for me. Right. That's what we are. Excuse me for getting loud. No, hey Mike, here's the question though. If this is how are we the wealthiest nation in the world? We're the wealthiest nation in the world based on human capital. In other words, people working. That's what makes us the wealthiest nation in the world. Our GDP is based on people getting up. It's not based on gold. It's not based on oil. It's based on people getting up and going to work for the highest salaries of the world.
Right.
That's what it is. So if people don't get up and go to work in this country, we'll end up being the poorest country in the world. Hold on. Let me respond to that. And that level of thinking, that way of thinking is dangerous at this time. So hold on.
One at a time.
I'm not going to talk over you. You're not going to talk over me. No, I'm not talking over you, please.
Let him address your statement.
I said suppose it. They've convinced us that us getting up to go to work is the key to being here in this country. And I said suppose we are in a disaster. This is a disaster. And everything has gone out the damn window in the fact that this virus is going around the world. And when it comes back around the world again, I hope we might even think about being prepared for it. Now, as far as people, going to work and salaries and all that, don't mean nothing if you ain't got your help. Nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. If you have your health, you have everything.
Okay, let me say something. Now, theoretically, that's all correct, right? But if they really believe that, we'd all have medical coverage, right? It would be a right, not a privilege. But because it's not a right, it is a privilege. And it is not something that's priority, right? It's part of why we're in the condition that we're in right now. So I'm agreeing with Farrakhan that look, let's look at the founding of this country. If you didn't serve a purpose, if you couldn't be seen as a commodity to the wealth and power, right? What did they do? They shot you and they threw you in a ditch because you served no purpose, right? So everybody here is here to serve a purpose. And the purpose, and we can see very clearly now, the purpose right now is to keep us keeping this economy going. And that's why they're giving us this $1,200. That's why they're talking about giving us $2,000.
Let's take it another level. If you do not have a job or a sense of income in this country, you, as a black man, you are emasculated and castrated as a do-nothing or lazy SOBs or somebody sitting up here, getting money off of his girlfriend's county check. So let's make it perfectly clear. And yes, people are hurting, but we also, as he said previously, we also have to take into account our health. What good is it to make money and die in the process of it?
Right, but here's
it's a moral dilemma.
It is a moral dilemma. I agree with you, Mike.
There's no moral dilemma there. I don't think it would be right. I'm not trying to be funny. There's no dilemma in saying that you need your health. I don't think that's the dilemma. Right? I don't think there's no dilemma there. Right? We have to deal with the reality. Right? Realities and dilemmas are two different things. The reality is this is a country whose wealth is based, and the only reason I'm using the wealth part is because it's what you started your statement with. Right? We are in the wealthiest country of the world. But the reason we are in the wealthiest country of the world is because people work. So if people don't work, and I'll give you a perfect example, the dollar would be at zero right now, right? If it wasn't for the fact that they produced more. Okay, if it wasn't for the fact that the government came up with the greatest, how did they always say it when it was Obama, the greatest transfer of wealth in history just happened.
So
right?
let me go back to what Mike said. It is a moral dilemma. Every time a frontline first responder goes in and deals with somebody who's infected with COVID-19, right? It is a moral dilemma. It's a moral dilemma, right? So because when you say, if you were to say that my health first, then they wouldn't be going in there, right? So it's not their health first. So we're all dealing with moral dilemmas right now. And so
listen, hey Eric, I understand. I'm ex-military. I understand the simple fact of sacrificing your life for other people. Yes, because I was part of that group that went into those war-torn countries and battlefields to make sure that these people do not attack on America's front. Right. Yes, I understand the plight of the first responders and the moral dilemma of self-preservation and understanding that the needs of the many are much more important than the needs of the one. But I'm talking about us in terms of individualism. Is it better for us to go out there right now for, a little bit above minimum wage paycheck, so that we can go someplace, or sit back and say that, we are all in this and we can make it through?
So now let's go back because, I got a decent memory. I'm getting older, but I got a decent memory. Remember we had Dr. Wright on?
That's the goal. Keep getting older.
Yeah, getting older, brother.
There you go.
But remember we had Dr. Wright on, and Dr. Wright talked about individualism, right? And he talked about how we perpetuate the individualism within our own homes. So we are a nation, right? Even though we say the United States, right? That's not who we are. We're not that. We don't teach that in our homes. We have in our very own homes, we have separate rooms, we have separate televisions, we have separate everything, and then that's extended outside of our homes into our immediate neighborhoods, and then into our cities, and then into our government, and then it's all over the place. And so now in this moment, we want to pretend that we're not individualistic, but we are, right? And so where we stand now we may need to migrate to something different. That's what I'm saying. What is going to be the new norm? Because the current norm is that, yes, we are individuals. We've been taught to be individuals, right? And because of that, right, the knee-jerk reaction when my bill needs to be paid, I don't give a damn about you. See, because I've been raised to be an individual, right? And so now we say, well, we got to think differently, right? How do we get there?
How do we get there? Is a simple thing of understanding. Right now, if we leave it up to the individual who says that my bill needs to be paid because another individual called a landlord says your rent is due, and that causes a level of anxiety, what you would do, and what most people should start to realize is the truth. We are all in this. There are people who are not getting an income, and there are people who are not collecting rents and mortgages. We are all in this. There are people in there who feel like, their individual efforts are more important, that they have to come together to play basketball and spread the disease amongst everybody and bring it home to their families, than understanding that the best way to keep your family safe is to stay behind in the house.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question.
Can I respond to Farrakhan real quick?
Go ahead.
And then I got to get off the phone. Farrakhan, this is a moral dilemma, and your moral values put more weight on getting out here and producing and working and boom, 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 and I completely understand. I don't disagree with it at all. But this is it's about resources, values, and health. And if the virus is attacking us on every one of those things, it's attacking the way we get our resources. It's making us make moral value decisions on whether I should go out here and work and expose myself or stay home. And then on the health part is, man, if I lose my health, I can't get back out there and do anything. So not to disagree with you. We said the same thing.
Let him finish.
Let me cut you off for a second. Just one time, let me cut you off. Right? I'm going to believe what you guys said, right? That it's a moral dilemma, because it takes me back to one of my first posts when all of this happened. I made a video because I'm getting, even to this day, I'm getting calls every day asking for people to cut their hair, either come to their shop or to go to their home, and I've told them all the same thing. It's not about the $20 or $30, $40, $50 that you want to pay me to cut your hair right now. I won't do it because I don't want to expose you, not just myself. I don't want to expose the next person. I can't bring you into my chair and let you sit in that chair and leave a germ in that chair that the next person gets, because even in me cleaning it, I miss one drop of it. And it gets on to the next person and it exposes them. And I said, that's not worth it. So that moral dilemma, you guys are right. It made me say, nah, I can't do that. I'd rather be tight right now than cut hair. And right now, to understand, I got people offering at least $100 for a haircut. Right? So I could do 2 of those a day, 3 of those a day, and be smiling easily. Right? But I'm not doing it because I do believe there's a greater cause that, like, I don't want to see anyone get sick from something pertaining to me.
Amen.
I can appreciate that, but
I have to continue for that. I have to continue for that, because that is what I was talking about. It's the understanding the needs of the many, and sacrificing the needs of yourself.
Vincent, I'm not disputing that we all need to be in a space of living communally, but I'm not naive. Right? And again, Dr. Wright said it. He said, but that's not how we were raised. So we've been conditioned to be individuals. Yes. And so the question that the statement that I'm making is this: I don't believe that any time in the short term we're going to be able to recondition people to think the way that they need to think in order for us to do better than we're doing right now. That's what
I think before it's all over, we're gonna have to form some violent or malicious or even come in contact, because you're right. They reduced us up to being separate and apart and individual, as opposed to
organizing and coming together and making things work. But I have some ideas going back to Farrakhan point. I would really love to talk to you because I have some ideas retooling the barber shops in a medical fashion, protectively, that it could actually come back online. But back at Farrakhan's point.
Well, here's the risk in doing that. We're talking about people in the medical profession in the hospitals who are contracting the virus, and they take all known precautions yet still get it. So what?
I understand that plan. I said going forward, just going forward.
Going forward.
And I understand that because they don't. Again, resources, values, and health. Let me just approach what you're saying from that point. They're not the resources that they need to protect themselves. Is on somebody's business model. On somebody's business model. I understand that. Right. And that's what I did. Hold on. I understand that. I said going forward. But I'm saying resources-wise in the hospitals, it's a business model. The reason they're not getting all the tools they got, because this is a complicated issue, trade and all of these other things. We reduced ourselves in this country that we want everything to cheapen. And we don't want to pay nobody what they're worth. So we sent all the work and all the manufacturing away from us. And now a crisis happened and we can't get nothing. So this is not something that just happened in a vacuum. It's a complicated thing, and I understand that going back to business. So I'm just talking about going forward. That's all. And when they ease up on, you can at this point do something. And after they ease up and say you can go back and open your shop, you still gonna have to take the courses because you ain't gonna know. You ain't gonna know. That's what I want to talk to you about down the line. You know what I mean? So, like before all of this, I had, that last week before we did the shutdown, I had already done, everything was disposable. So nothing got used twice on a person. In other words, the cakes were all plastic, right? And you threw them away after. Each chair got sprayed down once the person got out of it. That was a 10-minute process. All the bleach, all of that. But again, right now, this isn't the moment. That the situation is hot. But now, I want to just say one thing. I'm looking at Cuomo on the news, right? And I'm not saying that they're deliberately. He is now politely mainstreaming the situation, trying to say his big quote is weak now, can control the beach. What I'm saying is this their slow way of saying, well, we're going to be able to get back to that working and coming back out there? See, they're not going to give Trump. This is the politicizing of it, I guess is what I'm saying. So right now, Democratic leaders, they're not going to give Trump the heads up of saying, or the props of saying, we can get back to work, right? And letting it go as if it's his order. So they're going to fight his order, but then they're going to use other terms like the phrase, the new normal, and getting back to normal. This is what's on the screen with Cuomo right now. We're going to be able to get back to work, maybe May 1st or early May. See, this is right now we are in the pandemic is over, essentially, right? In the sense of, and what we're dealing with is the politicizing of the issue.
Right.
So, how is the pandemic over when 606 people died in the last 24 hours? You know what I'm saying? When they say they can control it, when they say they can see how it's moving, it's over in that sense.
No,
so now
wait.
No, it ain't over.
Farrakhan, please.
It's not over until they have a cure, health-wise.
Farrakhan, please.
But
okay.
Socially,
so wait a minute.
And the way they're going to use it.
So listen, we don't have adequate testing. Just found out in Korea, they said people who had it and recovered have it again. So where we believed that where we were operating, scientists were operating with the information that once you had it, right, they could then take your plasma, right, and they could give that to somebody and it would give them some immunity. Now they have to rethink that. So no, it's not over. right? They don't know they don't know the true number of people who've had it. They don't know. They still don't know whether or not you can be asymptomatic forever and just transmit it. There's so many things that they do not know about it. The struggle, and I agree with you here, is, and I talked about this in a post a couple days ago, when Cuomo came out and these other governors came out and created this pact that said, no, you don't decide as president when we open, we decide. And I said, to me, that was mate for Donald Trump in terms of him winning re-election. And this is why. Because now these governors, they exposed their queen way too early in this game. And they said, hey, listen, if our state's economy fails, it's because we didn't make the right choice about when to open. You see, so now Donald Trump gets to sit back, and if these states open and the economy roars, he'll jump back on the economy train. If the economy is tanking, he'll say, oh, you know what? I had this idea of opening up, but these governors stepped up and they said that they were going to choose and I was going to advise, but they didn't take my advice and they did what they wanted to do. And now those governors will be on the hook in each of those states. So watch it as it plays out. But to your point, Farrakhan, this is all political now. And we're all pawns in this game. And we're dying.
And you see how he's using us as pawns.
They all are. They all are. They all are right now. They all have politicized this thing.
You can't say it's Trump. They're all doing this right now. Like I said, if you're looking at the CNN with the Cuomo thing, and you just saw for the last 5 minutes they had nothing on their butt. How do we reopen business? This is their goal. They're playing a political game with our lives right now. Right now, this is not about the morality of helping people. Right now, it's about how do I look good as a politician. Like, how do I make my party look good? That's what people need to really be looking at right now. And
this is the big part in how he's using us as pawns. He's saying that we open the economy and everybody do like they did in Michigan, go storming the Capitol, saying that open the economy because we need to work. He's using us and dividing us so that he can now further his agenda. And we keep falling into it, time after time again.
Look,
we just have 45 minutes of the same conversation, falling into his plans and his trap.
Look.
It's about time now that we actually start taking some social interaction, making sure that people are safe.
But look, see, again, I'm not looking at falling in Donald Trump's trap. I'm wary of falling into all of their traps. They've all set traps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They have all set traps. And so you think you avoided this trap, but as soon as you sidestep it, there's another trap over there. You see, and that one, because the Democrats told us, hey, avoid that trap over there, come this way. And we go over here and we get snared in this trap that they set for us.
And we're in a minefield. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We're in a minefield right now. Everywhere you step, you might get blew up.
We are in a political minefield right now, guys. And each person who set their own minds are telling us to go in the other direction. And I'm saying, and using the chess analogy again, we need to just wipe all of these pieces off the board because they're all supporting each other.
Correct.
They're all supporting each other. See, this pawn, and I'm gonna say a pawn that is a mayor, right, is supporting this bishop that is the governor that's supporting this presidential candidate that is a knight. You understand what I'm saying? So you can't knock the knight off because it's being supported by the bishop, right? And you can't knock the bishop off because it's being supported by the pawn. Right? And so I want you to understand that. So that's what's happening. So when you try to get in there, and that's why I'm telling you, listen, none of look, our new norm. There are a lot of new norms that I think have to happen. One new norm is that we have to, if we're going to really be our brother's keeper, right, we have to identify the danger zones, right? And then we have to work hard to educate our brother. We have to recognize that they don't know. We talk about arrested development. We talk about all these other kinds. We have to give them the information. We can't just trust that they have it. A lot of them don't. And a lot of them, are willfully misguided, right? Some of them are lazy and some of them just don't know. And we have to work hard now to do that. So not just about servicing them in terms of forgiving, a rent or debt or some other kind of thing they may owe right now, and it's good to give food and, point them to food shelters and all those kinds of things. But in as much as they are food deprived, they're education deprived. You see, they're education deprived. And if we help educate them, then we teach them how to fish. But if all we're doing is giving them fish, when we emerge from this, whenever it is, they'll have their hand out for another fish. For another fish. And that's why we're in the state that we're in right now. Because far too many of us were not empowered to fish for ourselves. And so now we're waiting for this $1,200 check. Many people are praying that the government, passes this legislation where they get to $2,000. Oh, people are praying that the legislation passes for the forbearance. People are praying. See, they're praying for more fish.
Right.
They're praying for more fish. Give me another fish. Give me another fish. So I would say, that as we look for the new norm, I would like to see more fish poles in the water and less hands out. Less hands out. More fish poles in the water. And what can we do to ensure that there are more fish poles in the water? So, anyway.
Keep doing what you're doing because you're teaching people how to fish.
Well, I think the first step is I keep saying it. We gotta start with those people who are currently there, and we have to look at our circumstances, people, and we have to. We are in dangerous times right now. Dangerous times. Here. So in the last 10 minutes, is the new norm, guys? Because people are. There's a lot of fear mongering going on out there, and folks are talking about the fact that, it's a new world order. We're giving up our civil liberties, that they're, taking away our freedoms. I mentioned yesterday that, I'm planting my I'm planting my garden. I'm getting my goat and I'm getting my chickens, and Amin and I getting our gun permit, right? Is that really where we are? Is that the new norm?
God, I hope not.
It is. Right? So here's the funny thing. Not only is it, but is it something that we should have been doing anyway? Is it something that we got away from as people, being able to do certain things for ourselves that historically, right now we live in this modern age where we buy everything somebody else prepares it for you, some big corporation that we don't trust anyway. But we don't know how to cultivate the land ourselves. We don't know how to do it. We always laugh at the survivalist people. But right now, the survivalist people are laughing at us.
Well, I think black people should be laughing at a lot of them. If anybody who has a level of survivalistic instincts, it has to be the underprivileged and the people of color. But, and you're right. Getting back to sustainability is something that we do need to do. But also, if we're going to build a new norm, I like to build it with a lot more understanding and needs to taking care of those who are less fortunate. I mean, I can't sit up here and say that, we should live in a government where every average citizen gets $1,200 and every corporation gets $150 billion. That does not make sense for me. Our new norm should have a level of equality and leveling the playing field in terms of economic opportunity and growth. Our new norm should give a great deal of equality and leveling the playing field in terms of our education systems in our urban cities. And it should give parents a lot more understanding in how to motivate and encourage their children to do well, because they do need to be prepared for this global economy. As Eric talked about with the mask and other items, we are no longer competing in our states, in our counties, in our cities. We're competing now on a global level. And in terms of an academic report card, American children aren't there or prepared for it. Our new norm should have some more understanding in sustainable foods and better markets in our urban cities, and better health care for everyone. Not just the white people and the privileged, but for those who are underprivileged and underemployed. They deserve the opportunity to have the best health that they need for their disease and ailments. Our new norm should give us a level of consciousness and understanding that our health is our biggest resource that we have, and not our jobs that we go to. And that our friends and family and people who are faithful to us should be like gold to us, rather than us seeking gold to put in our pockets. Our new norm as people of color should be a lot better than where we were before COVID-19.
Hey, Diane, what are your thoughts about a new norm?
This is our new normal. It will continue to change. And if people don't adapt, they will be left behind even further than where they are now. This is an opportunity for people to get back to doing what they should have been doing before, growing their own vegetables, jarring their own fruits, whatever it is that they can do themselves, so they can be more independent and not dependent on the government to provide them with everything.
Listen.
Amen. And you'll be a lot healthier in doing all of that as well, because you eliminate all the byproducts and everything that come with the preservatives that they put in foods to get it to you,
All of your vulnerabilities are being laid bare right now, folks. All of them. All of your insecurities are just out there. It's all raw right now. And you have the people who are making the decisions are all people who were funded and paid for by the very corporations who put you in this position. Right? All of those people, like literally, you have no control right now. Those right now as we speak, and I just saw, and I shared it on my page. It was breaking news that came out that talked about paycheck protection, right? It said the headline is Paycheck Protection Program is out of money. Thousands of small businesses are now shut out, right? So you have people right now moving pieces called senators and congressmen and women, right? They're moving them across the chessboard to protect their interests. Who do you have moving across the chessboard to protect yours? Because these small businesses just got wiped out. Another piece off the board. Gone. Next. Tell you, you're not even playing checkers. Because checkers gives you the same board with 64 spaces. I don't know what they're playing. Parcheesi, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so the new norm...
Three-dimensional chess, like on Star Trek.
The new norm I see is going to be a race toward the people who are waking up and realizing they're screwed. Right? So I think that there's polls that are happening right now to find out how awake that core group of people who realize they're screwed are. And then once they realize what that number is, if it's an influential number of people who are voters, and I believe it will be, I believe the messaging in this campaign is going to change, and it's going to change around those people. Right? And I think that COVID-19 is going to drive a more progressive agenda on both sides of the aisle. It's going to have to. And it's going to be driven, right, I think, from the ground up, because each of these congressmen and women have to go into their districts and they got to answer some hard questions. Right? And those questions that they answer about how they're going to be dealing with it, how they're going to fight for these things. They're going to have a different fight when they go to Washington.
You think so, Eric?
I do.
When you can look at Michigan right now and you got people protesting to go back to work.
I
Do you really think that the American public is going to demand on its leadership that they do better?
That they do something.
Yes.
Right, no,
I
but
think so.
understand what I'm saying. But understand what I'm saying, Farrakhan. See the symptom, right? What you see in Michigan is a symptom. So these are a whole bunch of people who are vulnerable. They recognize their vulnerability, right? That they can't miss more than 1 or 2 paychecks, that they can't do these things. So they recognize their vulnerability. And so they're lashing out right now and saying, I got to get back to work. But what has to be resolved is that that underlying condition that leads them to that insecurity, right? And so the messaging is going to be in not addressing them screaming and hollering about wanting to get back to work, but resolving the insecurity. That is where the fight is now. It's going to be
right. But that's my question. Do you think that the people will question that insecurity? See, guys, that's where I think you guys have more faith in people than I do. Okay? Because I don't believe that. I don't believe that people are going to want to change their lives. Farrakhan, that's what they're talking about.
But Farrakhan, listen,
answer your,
it's going to be, listen, understand this, Farrakhan, this thing, when we're in November, right, and people are still dealing with this, we're in November and people are still dealing with this, yeah. What did you say? The headline said 2022.
They're not going to be in November. See, that's what I'm saying. You're looking at the news right now and they're telling you they're going to make you feel whole within the next 30 days.
No, Farrakhan, listen.
Right? See, Cuomo was saying that.
Listen,
the
Farrakhan, I understand
of New Jersey is, I got you.
I understand what Cuomo...
You're too hopeful. Maybe I'm just too pessimistic.
Listen.
Because I don't see it. I don't hear it in conversation. I don't hear any person other than us and people that are on our level, and we're the minority. Right? Talking with this.
Well, if I could, Farrakhan, I believe that right now that the people are ready for what a lot of people want to believe. I think that this November people will want change. And as Eric said, we have to eliminate the entire chessboard. Let's start
this is what everybody on the show to do right now, right? I want everybody to punch $800 on this bet, because I'm about to be $200 richer come November, okay? And we're going to put our $100 down on whether or not Americans are going to demand change or not, because I'm telling you, I know Americans. I know Americans, and I know that they're not going to. I know that they will be comfortable again come November, because that's what the ruling powers will make them feel. And that they will go back to being in the rat race. And I will put my dollar, I'll put my money is right here. I got it right. I'm going to throw it down on the table right now. I'm going to
we're going to end with this time.
On the 16th of April, right, 2020, and we're going to see who's right. Because I'm telling you, Americans is going to do the same thing.
We're going to pay attention to see what goes on. We're going to let that be the last word. Any other comments? Put them in the thread. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Love you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.
Hey, we have to continue to have this conversation about what the new norm is going to be. Yes, sir.
Hey, Eric, I can tell you this. You will know that America, at least New Jersey, is ready for change when they see a new senator and a new congressman in office.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see about New Jersey. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right, fellas. And Diane. Have a good one, Diane.
All right. God bless you. And